And good evening to our fellow listeners and viewers. Today is Sunday, October 1st at 8:21 p.m. This is Federico Lyons of States Rights Radio and
Seth Hancock of Seth Hancock Reports. In tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about central mass surveillance, and we'll talk about the 2024 political candidates still craving for maximizing law enforcement while minimizing our legal rights. And in particular with that, we'll be talking about the GOP debate. Kind of. I think both Federico and myself didn't watch the whole debates, but we got some of the highlights and stuff. But and I think we should start with, the central mass surveillance, because it's kind of we discussed the Constitution last week with, Constitution Week. And so this is some important topics to discuss regarding the Constitution, in particular the Fourth Amendment. In particular, there's a case out of Michigan, out of Lansing, Michigan, Long Lake Township, which is in Lansing, and effectively, this town has been going after a resident for over a decade, accusing him of using his 5-acre property as an illegal salvage or junkyard because he stores automobiles that he works on as a hobby, which, that raises other concerns about zoning and just how much authority local government has in zoning, which is ridiculous that it's his property. Shouldn't he be allowed to use it however he wants? But, effectively, basically, the so-called junkyard that he has is so far into his property that it can't even be viewed from the public. So why does the local government even care? But in 2008, they went after this guy. His name's Todd Maxon, accusing him of using his property illegally as a junkyard. And basically, the township lost. The citizen won. And even got reimbursed by the township for his legal fees. But the township decided to keep going after this guy and use drones to fly over his property in 2010, 2016, 2017, and 2018. They know that they used drones to spy on his property without obtaining a search warrant. And then in 2018, the township filed another action against this gentleman. And, this seems like a clear-cut case of violating his Fourth Amendment rights.
yeah, it really does because, this is his private property. Now, depends on how, he uses his backyard or his front yard to, sometimes, I live in a residential area, but, there are certain laws, there are certain ordinances that I have to maintain a proper front yard or backyard. But if you live in the country and, there is no set rules on that, then, it's your own private property. But in the sense to use drones and mass surveillance without the proper legal remedy to obtain it, with the National Security Act and the NSA and all that, and that gives the, because of the NSA and its legal acts, then that gives the state and local government says, hey, the federal government can do it, so can we, and that's why you get a lot of unconstitutionalities. So it's very sad that we are following a federal government in just because they're doing it doesn't mean that they're doing it right, and states should know better. States cannot contradict our Bill of Rights, our constitutional rights, and it's there. And, when I hear this thing, it just upsets me that, people don't, I'm glad this person obtained his, won his case, and I hope that ends it, and I hope that the township doesn't appeal its decision and heads over to the Supreme Court, because it's not needed. Because again, it's his, if there's no ordinances on how to keep your front yard, and you can keep it how you please, and it doesn't go into the street, then that's up to that person. But if once that junkyard hits into the streets, then we have a problem. For example, when I lived in Northern Virginia, my employer, she lived next to a person who didn't have a fence or anything distinguishing his property, and he had a wild dog, and the wild dog would cross over his property line into her property line, and become a nuisance. And I told her, well, he can't do that. I mean, he has to maintain his dog within his property. He has to either have a fence, or his dog has to be indoors so he doesn't cross over. Because again, you're crossing into the person's property or into public property. If it's maintaining your property, I have no problem with that. But once you cross over into another person's property or into public property, then you become a nuisance, and then then the law should act, but not within your property. And again, the federal government has has never really cared about our own privacy rights, and it's very sad that state and local governments are following that suit.
Yeah, and in this case, just a little more details here. What happened is, like I said, in 2018, the township decided to take action against this citizen again, and the Michigan Court of Appeals basically admitted that the use of drones did violate this gentleman's Fourth Amendment rights. However, they basically said, because this is a civil matter and not a criminal matter, that it was all right. It was all right for the township to violate his Fourth Amendment rights. It's right now what's happening is the Rutherford Institute is trying to get this to the Michigan Supreme Court to step in and basically overturn that appeal court decision today. And but that's this is a lot of what's happening is the government's going after people acting as if it's civil matters instead of criminal matters. That's kind of like what the bureaucratic state is. They try to say it's all right for the government to mandate this or that because we're not going to lock you up if you violate our mandates, but we're just going to make you pay penalties. And isn't that all right? And of course it's not, but that's what's happening. And I just want to note that the Supreme Court back in 2018, the U.S. Supreme Court, ruled in a case about law enforcement and protection of curtilage. And the police, if you don't have a warrant, basically the police can't violate your curtilage of your home. They can only go up to the curtilage and see if something illegal is happening on your property. And shouldn't that apply to code enforcement? Shouldn't that apply to zoning rules as well? But it's just and I just think about this particular case in Michigan that the guy has cars in his property that aren't even viewable from the public. So what is the big deal? Why is the township going after this guy? It's just like the public can't even see the alleged junkyard. So why do you have a problem with this? I mean, it's crappy on so many levels.
It is, and it's one way to get fees from citizens in states that are lacking of funds. So again, it reminds me of the Simpsons episode. I know I brought this up. I don't know if you've seen it, where Homer Simpson is on New Year's Day and he's taking out the trash, and apparently how he's taking out the trash is illegal due to some ordinances passed by the city council. So it's just, passing, some weird ordinances so residents can pay for these exuberant fees or whatever, and, pay for whatever funds needs to be paid. So, again, it attacks the little guy, the little citizen in doing that. They did that to Roscoe Filborn in the 1940s with his wheat. They're doing it now. They've always done it. The federal and state government has always tried to attack the little person. And again, it's because it's also, keep in mind, folks, that you have a 16th Amendment that guarantees the right of Congress and state and local governments to do this. If we didn't have that 16th Amendment, then we wouldn't be hearing about these fees and taxes and all that, and this ruckus of his privacy rights, his property rights and all that. But because we have that amendment, you have certain state and local governments and even the federal government passing exuberant fees and taxes, and that's what's creating this dismay and this chaos. So, this blatant disregard of its privacy rights. If this man has on his property rights and you can't really view it, and he's not obstructing any traffic in the public roadway, then that's fine. I mean, I have no issue with that. I mean, if it's in an open field, that's fine. But it's the abusive that we've allowed these governments, federal and state, to go on like this. And the Supreme Court sometimes, in their infinite wisdom, has sided with our Fourth Amendment legal rights, and sometimes they have sided with law enforcement. And it's more with the law enforcement than our Fourth Amendment rights. So it's just very sad to see this, and very disheartening that people are not really waking up to this. And I hope they do, because this is affecting all of us. Because in every single township, they're always going to find someone applying these fees and laws that are that goes against our rights, our property rights and our privacy rights.
Yeah, and I've been covering local government for quite a while, and it's like I said at the beginning of this, this also leads to questions on zoning and how much authority does a local government have to zone. And, I'm not sure. I mean, I know Houston, Texas, I believe, has no zoning, which I don't know how that works for them. I've never been to Houston. But I'm not sure that I'm against all zoning, but covering local government, I always find it odd, all the different things that people have to go and beg permission from the local government to do this or that on their property. I mean, do we own our property or not? I mean, that's the thing that is always something I question when I see some of these different things that people are asking permission to do on their property at local government meetings. And, I'll admit most of the times the local boards are, receptive and they give them approval. But, I mean, the fact that you have to get approval for so many things, it's just something that it doesn't sit well with me. But I guess zoning laws are things that I think should be discussed more, and how much authority should a local government have to zone your property. I'm fine with some, but I think we overdo it. That brings to another case that concerns local government, and again, the Rutherford Institute is doing something about this, and it's the city of Charlottesville, Virginia. They're basically, the police department's looking to adopt this flock license plate recognition system. And but effectively, it's a license plate reader that they'll put cameras up around the city of Charlottesville, and basically they'll be able to capture the make, model, the license plate number, the state the vehicle's from, vehicle type, missing and covered plates, bumper stickers, decals, roof racks. They're just going to be able to collect all this information, and they claim it's to prevent, deter, and solve crime. And basically, the Rutherford Institute has asked the Charlottesville government to vote that down because it's just an expansion of the surveillance state. And this is a tough one because my guess is these would be ruled constitutional because there's no expectation of privacy in public, so the police have the right to run your license plates if you're on public streets. But it just feels like you're being constantly surveilled, and it's something that people should be uneasy about.
Well, with Virginia, I'm not too surprised by that because Virginia still has emissions and inspections on your vehicle. I mean, Florida stopped doing that. I don't know if Illinois has that. Does Illinois have emissions and inspections?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and no surprise there. But with Virginia, I'm not surprised there. And Virginia, again, it was the land of independence. It was the first state to declare independence from England, where it passed a resolution, and yet you have all this mass surveillance on your vehicle, property taxes on your vehicle. I mean, why would you pay property taxes on a vehicle, particularly a lease, where I lived in Northern Virginia and I had to pay property taxes on my vehicle, and when it was a lease? It's, outrageous, this sense of, surveillance and taxes and fees on properties and vehicles and those stuff like that. So I'm not surprised with that. Again, it's because the federal government has instituted these policies, and so states follow suit because, again, it's within the constitutional bounds of the 16th Amendment, as I've said. So, it gives that sense of, and we can do it. Other states don't do it, but, we can do it. We have the authority and all that. And then that encroaches on the liberty of the citizen. And this is where people don't understand. That's why, Virginia still remains very pro-business, but there's a lot of people leaving Virginia and moving to North Carolina, moving to Tennessee, moving to South Carolina, because Virginia has somewhat become a little bit more like Maryland. And it's very sad to see states like that, like Illinois or Michigan, where they have no respect for our rights. I mean, our rights matter more than politicians' rights. Our rights matter more than law enforcement rights. Law enforcement doesn't have rights. First of all, let me retract that. Law enforcement doesn't have rights. So why are these politicians and these bureaucrats, supporting and hovering over law enforcement and not caring about us, the citizens, the one that actually we pay into the system by force, but we pay into the system. So, I find it very disheartening that not many American people are out there, when I see the 2024 political candidates or, Democrat, Republican, and they don't care about our rights. They really don't. Democrats don't care. I mean, Dianne Feinstein, she just recently passed away. She was never for Fourth Amendment rights. She's the one that, gave the CIA more power as chair of the Intelligence Committee. May she rest in peace. I come to bury Dianne Feinstein. I'm not here to praise her. So, this is the problem. People think, Dianne Feinstein passed away. She was such a great leader. No, she wasn't. She stomped on our rights. She really did. So people have to wake up on this.
Yeah. I think about like this this flock safety surveillance system, which, by the way, I've got to go back and check it, but I believe one of the villages I cover here in Illinois just adopted that very same company's cameras. And I remember during that process, there was not really any pushback from the board about, what they're going to do with these photographs. It's just, but I think about this, like, think about what happened during COVID, where the government said you have to stay within your home. I mean, do you not think that they might use this surveillance state to, track you to make sure that you're doing what they approve you of doing? This is where we're going. I mean, we've been going here for a long time. I mean, definitely after 9/11 was the biggest expansion of the surveillance state. It's just people don't seem to be too bothered by it, and they should. I mean, we're being monitored. The NSA has that huge database warehouse in Utah. This is not the mark of a healthy country. If your country is supposed to be for liberty and freedom. We've got the exact opposite going on. We've got a massive surveillance state, and this is an example of how the local government is helping expand it. And, like we've talked a lot about, is if there's really any place to kind of push back against the encroachment of authoritarian government, it's at the local level. And so when you see local governments institute the authoritarian controls, it's really got to lead to some pushback, because the local government should be trying to stand up to the authoritarians in Washington, not helping them.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and this, it also infuriates me that this was one of the reasons why, the American colonists declared independence against Great Britain, where this mass surveillance that the British government had over its colonies, and and not only the confiscating weapons, but also putting up soldiers in people's homes, quartering soldiers, and also arresting people without due process and without probable cause and without the proper legal warrants and all that. So you're right. It started with 9/11. Well, I mean, I would say, yeah, it kind of continued with 9/11, but it's always been like that. You had the Espionage Act of 1918 or 1917, where you had many people, say that they were spies, and they really weren't any spies. And then you had the Cold War frenzy, the Rosenbergs, and I don't know how communist. I'm sure they belonged to the Communist Party, but I don't know how Soviet they were. And all that, and this Cold War frenzy that, then you had Oppenheimer that, they really discredited him. But it's always been there, this sense of, government control and central planning control that, it starts, when the federal government doesn't, then state and local governments have to follow suit and have to follow whatever the federal government says. And that just, really, really disappoints me. There's certain cities here in Florida that they are adapting into NSA rules, into drones and all that. And I'm not saying to myself, wait a minute, hold on. Don't you guys read the Fourth Amendment? Don't you guys know that this goes against our rights? I seen, there's this one sheriff up in Lee County, up in Cape Coral, that, he's from New York originally, but he treats it like if he was a, part of the black shirts of fascist Italy. And I'm like, this is not, if you want to have that type of programs, then go move to Italy and enjoy Prime Minister Meloni in her little fascism tirade, but not here in America. So it's just infuriating to see that. And then, again, with the 2024 elections coming up, and when they were talking about law enforcement, and very disappointing to hear the governor of North Dakota thanking law enforcement and for protecting us. I go, why are you thanking them? Are you thanking them for them violating our rights? So this just proves that I guess I'm going to have to abstain, because there's no true politician guaranteeing our rights into protection. There's no true politician that is going to protect us. Not the governor of North Dakota, not Nikki Haley, definitely not Chris Christie, and not even Donald Trump or DeSantis, especially not Donald Trump, where he really violated our civil rights and our Bill of Rights. So, this thing where people get infatuated with these politicians and they thank law enforcement and back the blue and back this. I'm like, wait a minute, what about back our rights? What about back our Fourth Amendment rights that's more important than law enforcement? So to this day, I'm still abstaining because I can't find anybody that will protect my rights.
Yeah, and that's the Republican debate this week. I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't hear a whole lot, but I heard some. I've heard some of the clips. I've heard some of the questions that were asked, and like you said with law enforcement, the first thing. I think the question was something to the tune of, what as president, what would you do to help solve the crime problems in these major cities? And I'm sitting here thinking, well, do you think the president is some type of god? Well, what do you mean? What is the president going to do to solve a local matter? I'm not disagreeing that there are probably major crime problems in a lot of big cities in America. Well, this is a problem for those local towns to deal with and figure out. It is not the job of the president to stop crime from happening. The president does not have the authority nor the power to do anything when it comes to, crime like we're talking about in the big cities. This is something that the local governments need to take care of and figure out on their own, and they need to be spending their own money to clean up their own cities, not taking from the federal trough. And this is the big problem. Like people just think that this is the role of government. And again, like you said with the police, that's the answer from all the GOPers is that, we back the blue. We don't want to defund the police. We want to defend the police. And I go back to we need to localize police. We need the local government to take charge. And, there are plenty of police departments. They're like every other government agency that are bloated. They have too many police officers. Some police departments might need more police officers, but these are questions that are meant for the local people to answer, not for us to have some national debate on. It's a local government. Local government and local people should be determining, do we need to defund our police a little bit, or do we need to add more to the police department? But as long as we keep acting as if the central authority is the way we should be going, it's just going to make things worse.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I saw, that why are they asking a question about law enforcement in local communities in the city of New York, Philadelphia? Was it in Philadelphia where they had that massive robbery? Yeah, in Philadelphia or Chicago or in LA or San Francisco. That's a matter for local authorities. But yet, I know that these individuals are committing these crimes, but, everybody is entitled for their due process rights. As much as when I see them, and you're right, the burner proof vest that this man robbed an iPhone store and he took that iPhone, that's fine, but you got to prove that in court and you got to give him his due process. So you cannot, it is a local matter. It's not up to the federal government to come in and say, we're going to send in the federal marshals and arrest everybody. No, there's no legal bounds for that. It's up to a local matter to do that. Now, and with regards to like kidnapping and stuff like that, unfortunately that becomes a federal issue because J. Edgar Hoover made it into a federal issue on kidnapping. But apart from a simple robbery or murder, it's up to local issues, but it's up to local law enforcement to not only bring justice, but respect our rights. Respect, even if I rob a candy store, a candy, if I took a soda pop and I didn't pay for it, am I gonna get a knee jerked up to my neck? No, I expect that you guys will treat me and take me to court and prove that I stole this. But it's up to the local law. It's up to the local law, not federal law. And when I see in the 2024 candidates and they speak about this. This is not the role. We don't want a federalized police department. But again, this has created a multitude of federal agencies. You have the FBI, you have the DEA, you have the ATF. They have no authority. They really don't. They shouldn't exist. The only police force that should exist are the federal marshals of the DOJ, part of the DOJ department. But apart from that, none should exist. The FBI should not exist. It should just be the federal marshals. That's the only federal police that's in the Constitution. But again, people, when they hear that and cheer, back the blue, and defend the blue like DeSantis and Burgum and Chris Christie or Giuliani when he was running, give me a break here. What happened to our rights, our citizens' rights? What about back our rights, not back the blue? So, and then one thing, again, we pointed this out several times, Seth, but I want to bring this up again, is that during Trump, they were always back in the blue and defending the FBI. But all of a sudden, because the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago, the FBI is bad and all the agencies are bad. Stop with the hypocrisy. And defend it when it's supposed to be defended, and defund it when it's supposed to be defunded. But stop being hypocritical about it.
Yeah, and I just remember specifically to the conservatives, it was police who were enforcing mask mandates. It was police who were enforcing the lockdown rules. It's just the hypocrisy that they still just that it's really this just bowing to the police authority. It's like we've said, both of us believe that police are a proper function of local government, but we need to stop setting them apart as if there's some higher authority. And I've always said police have no authority over you whatsoever unless you've committed a crime or are suspected of committing a crime. And we need to understand that police are not just this overwhelming authority. They don't have authority over you unless they meet certain criteria. And I just I'm thinking of again, another thing that I've covered here locally in Illinois, one of the villages I cover, with the need for police to be localized, is that a few years ago, the police department at this one village that I cover basically asked to increase the number of police officers that they have. And basically their reasoning was that we need to stay up with the local communities surrounding us because they have more police per citizen than we do. And the thing about it was that that same evening, the village got recognized as one of the top 10 safest communities in the nation for villages of that size, as based on their population category. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, the fact that this is a safe community, there's not a whole lot of crime, and quite frankly, I have a good relationship with the police department there. I think they do a decent job, and so I think that they're a pretty good police department. But the fact that you're such a safe community tells me you don't need more police. You don't need to burden the taxpayers with funding the salaries of more police when you're doing a pretty good job as it is. But their excuse was that other communities have more cops, so why don't we? And that's like, to me, that's not a reason. But because we get this, back the blue mentality, it passed through the budget easily. Nobody questioned it. And this is the problem. We need local government to handle these questions, and we need them to think for themselves and not let keeping up with the Joneses be their excuse for taking more taxpayer dollars that don't need to be taken.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's certain limits that we need to impose on local law enforcement and federal law enforcement. And, with mass surveillance, I know many people regard Ed Snowden as a traitor or Ed Snowden as a hero. I mean, he worked for the NSA. No, he worked for the CIA. He worked for the CIA, right? Ed Snowden?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he just found out what NSA was doing, and he thought it was wrong, and he didn't trade secrets with the enemy like other individuals did. He actually exposed what the federal government was doing, and he was doing things quite frankly unconstitutional. And we shouldn't be. He may have, whatever the Espionage Act is. Again, these acts of Congress are, if you look at it, they are unconstitutional. They stand no constitutional background. So I think Ed Snowden should not be tried for treason or espionage. I think he was doing the proper thing as a citizen. He left the agency. He exposed the agency. He exposed the NSA, and he he left. He didn't stay behind. He just became a whistleblower that left. I commemorate people like that because the federal government is doing things that are quite frankly unconstitutional, and people need to know about this. And when when state and local law enforcement do this, just as the federal government does, it cripples our liberties. It crippled our societies of a free republic that it shouldn't be. I don't want to be Russia. I don't want to have a Putin or a Stalin or in China. I want to live by the Constitution that grants me those rights. So I give kudos to people like Snowden that exposed the mass surveillance system that the NSA was doing, because it's blatantly unconstitutional. It gives no rights to do that whatsoever. It's in the Third and it's in the Fourth Amendment. And then, quite frankly, this mass surveillance, monitoring our cell phones, monitoring our backyard, that's kind of, having soldiers quartered in our homes, being there, surveying. So, this has to stop, but there's frankly no law enforcement, no politician, no bureaucrat that is willing to stop this, and it's quite sad and upsetting that we are living in a mass surveillance state where our liberties, guaranteed by the Constitution, it's being trampled on, and it's just infuriating. And I give kudos to Ed Snowden. I really do, and I hope that he gets to come back to his country and be an American and live happily here in the United States, because I give kudos to him.
Yeah, and then Edward Snowden. I just remember he didn't get a pardon from Donald Trump. He must not have had the $2 million to buy a pardon. I am a fan of his. I think he should be treated as a whistleblower, not as a criminal. But that's the world we live in, and the government will go after anybody who threatens their power and their control. It's as we were discussing, the police with the GOP debate, it goes beyond just the police. It's another question was that, apparently some COVID stimulus money is going to be running dry soon, which is threatening apparently to close down several child daycare centers. And that was another question that was asked about, what's your plans to help these families who are, who might lose their child care? And again, I'm like, what is this the federal government's problem? This is not something a president should be discussing. It's not the job of the president to provide child care to families. This is a parent's responsibility to provide their own child care. And we just accept this. And again, this is a Republican debate, and the Republicans, they like to tell us how much they believe in limited government. And it's such a lie. They don't. They all accept the idea that the president is there to solve all our problems. And, the people need to start rejecting this and start seeing through the madness that this is. I mean, it's like every question is about what are you going to do as president to solve this problem and that problem. And look, this is the problem, is that we are looking for the federal government to solve our problems. They're creating more problems, and nobody's willing to stand up and say that.
No, nobody is. And I thought Doug Burgum, the governor of North Dakota, was somebody that actually was stating that, but I guess I was wrong. But yeah, no, nobody, this thing with childcare, with Head Start, with the idea of the Great Society of LBJ, we've actually, the federal government has become a big daddy state, a papa and a mama state. And it's not the role. I mean, it's not the role of the federal government to be enforcing commerce, enforcing education, enforcing childcare, healthcare. It's not. When are they going to get it through their heads that there's nothing in the Constitution, no matter what the Supreme Court says, there's nothing in the Constitution that guarantees these protections by the government of healthcare and welfare and childcare. It's really not. I mean, the Department of Interior, I don't know when it was established, but it should not exist. The preservation of forests and parks, that should be up to the states to do it. Yosemite should be in the hands of the state of California, not the federal government. And all those other parks, I mean, they're very beautiful, don't get me wrong, but they should be in the hands of the individual states, not the federal government. So this is something that, both Republicans and Democrats, that's why, I really see no difference, in 2016 or 2008 or 2004, 2000, going back to even, I would say the only difference was in 92 when you had you had George Herbert Walker Bush and Bill Clinton saying the same thing, but then you had Ross Perot saying something different that actually, I actually believed in. When I was about 11, 12 years old, I'm saying, this guy, he talks funny, but he's the only one that's talking different than George Herbert Walker Bush or Bill Clinton. But after that, you had Bob Dole and Bill Clinton that, they're talking the same language of federal government control. And, it's this fascination that people just want federal government control. And it's just, not in the purview of the Constitution. And people need to know that. And the mass surveillance is not even the purview of the Constitution, and people need to know that. There's nothing in the Constitution that says the federal government has a right to surveillance your home without the means of a warrant. And even state and local governments don't have that. So, for example, with the Second Amendment, where you can't even cross New Jersey with a carry-on weapon because it's against the law in New Jersey. I go, wait a minute, but we live in the Constitution of the United States. I am free to travel with my gun wherever. If I keep it within me, I can cross New Jersey into New York with no problem because we have a Constitution with our Bill of Rights. It's for all the states, not just a few here and there. And, it's quite intriguing that people don't listen to other people. People are just listening to who can make my life better. Okay, this guy running for president, or this guy running for governor, this guy running for senator. No, stop looking to the federal government, for God's sakes. Start looking in your own local governments and tell them that they need to protect our rights, because that's the important part. So it's very hard to see that.
Yeah, and this is not a popular opinion, but this is ultimately we've gotten here because the people want this. The people demand this. They demand, oh, don't cut my program, everybody wants to point their fingers at the politicians, and of course I'm no fan of politicians, but look, a lot of this has to do because the people desire security rather than liberty, and this is really where we need to see a change, is in the mentality of the American people. The American people need to say, enough is enough. We can handle our own affairs. We can solve our own problems that are in our lives. And, again, with this GOP debate, I didn't see too much of it, but the stuff I saw, when these politicians were, saying their answers about how they're going to help people, the audience cheers for it. They cheer for big government, and that's where the focus needs to be. Is the American people need to stop applauding the politicians, and they need to start demanding liberty.
Yeah, and the thing I was going to say about that was that, people need to, I don't want a president to be the savior. I just want the president to just go to the Oval Office and do what you're supposed to do. Protect national security, protect, not the homeland with the Patriot Act, no, not that. Protect international affairs, treaties, protect it with our allies. That's something. And, the rest, leave it up to the individual and to the states. You don't have to involve in childcare. You don't have to involve in education. Thank you, George W. Bush, for the No Child Left Behind Act. You don't have to involve with healthcare. Thank you, President Barack Obama, with that. I don't know what Donald Trump did, but we don't want Donald Trump. People have to really stop relying on federal government and stop relying on state governments that want to behave like federal governments and demand that they protect our rights, that we have more rights than them. And the American people must understand that they don't have no rights. We have the rights. We demand that guaranteed of rights. And for my last thought in mind in this is that, look into the Constitution, look what rights are guaranteed by us and for us, and the government has no rights. I don't care if government has the right, the 60th Amendment may be in the books, but they don't have that right. They shouldn't have that right to tax us. They shouldn't have that right to impose these mass surveillance laws and healthcare laws. They don't. And whenever you see these politicians in the DNC debates, I can't wait to see what DeSantis and Newsom are going to argue about. They're going to argue about the same thing. It's just, one saying that he wants national security control. The other one says he wants social security control. So it's the same thing. Don't listen to them, because they're not going to do what really you want. And they're not going to do what, they're not going to protect your rights. They're just going to protect their rights.
Yeah, and that's the way the debates are framed, and people need to reject that. They need to start, basically, I think the GOP debates have not drawn too many viewers, from what I've heard, but I'm not completely sure about that. But, take your focus off of the national politics and start focusing locally. But, I think maybe a good way to end this is we're talking about the authoritarians in Washington. Are you scared that the government might shut down and they might not solve your problems?
Oh, yeah, that's something we didn't cover. Yeah, I saw, they love a good sob story, and I empathize with some government workers. For example, they interviewed a very elderly. Well, she's not elderly, but she's the cafeteria lady at the Library of Congress, and she was and they, the media, they love a sob story that if the government shuts down, this woman's not going to get paid, and she's not going to pay their bills. And yeah, it's very sad because it can affect the private industry as well. But we shouldn't be funding for cafeteria. That should be funding for itself. And we cannot depend on that. They cannot depend on us to do that. So, you know what? I feel sorry for some government workers, like the cafeteria lady that they interviewed in the Library of Congress. But, it's not our responsibility. You work in a cafeteria. That should be up to the city of Washington D.C. to cover those expenses, not the citizens, of California. I do hope the government shuts down, and I hope that Kevin McCarthy, when he shuts down, he really shuts down the agencies that need to be shut down. We've had shutdown after shutdown, and they don't do anything. I hope they do shut down the EPA. I hope they do shut down certain departments and certain agencies, the ATF, the DEA, the FBI. I hope they do shut them out, and they do close them. It's not shutting down, it's closing. I hope they do close them down, and we can end this fiasco and, stabilize the budget. But unfortunately, I don't think Speaker McCarthy is going to do that. I think he's probably going to just continue on this mass centralization of government with Majority Leader Jeffries. And we're just gonna see this dog and pony show of, sob stories of cafeteria ladies and not really shutting down the appropriate agencies and departments.
Yeah, it's always, because the government shutdowns, the threats of government shutdowns that happen, almost every year now. To me, it's always theater. They're going to come up with some grand deal, and they'll come out as wanting to be praised as heroes at the last minute. That's probably what's going to happen, because that's what always happens. But to me, whenever there's a threat of government shutdown, I'm like, bring it on. Let's shut this beast down. I mean, but like you said, what happens, even if you do shut down, it's never what really needs to be shut down. It's, they close national parks, and they, do things to make to make life bad for certain people, but they never really shut down what really needs to be shut down. So that's the problem with it. But whenever I just think about government shutting down, I'm like, good, let's shut it down. But that's not the way most people think.
No, I mean, it's not really the shut. Just close it down. Don't even shut it down. Just close it down. Yeah. Close the doors. Close the Department of Labor and all that. But like you said, it's a theater act. It's a dog and pony show. You'll see the sob stories of cafeteria ladies or the janitor of the Longforth building or wherever. So it's an amateur theatric show, and then you see Ted Cruz and battling with Bernie Sanders and all that crap. It's ridiculous. They're just continuing this mass centralization of government to protect their ego and protect this mass bureaucracy. And I hope people get to see that. But I mean, I guess you and I will abstain because we see that it's the same dog and pony show crapola.
Yeah.
So, well, my last thought in this is, stop relying on the federal government. Stop relying on this mass centralization of power, of surveillance, whether federal government or state government and local government. And if you see a drone, make sure you contact your lawyer and you tell them to present a warrant, because, again, that is an infringement on your right. What say you, Seth?
Yeah. I would agree, and contact your lawyer. I mean, it'd be nice if you have a shotgun to shoot it down.
Yeah, that too.
But probably the lawyer's a better option, because you'll have better chance of not getting in trouble for shooting down a government drone.
Exactly. So let's know your rights and keep it at it, and live free or die, and live free, and let's try to live free. So. Well, have yourself a wonderful evening, you guys, and a week ahead. And we'll be back next Sunday at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, 7:30 Central. Thanks so much for staying tuned.
Good night.